welcome, sir. That was really, really warm. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Now, introducing our favorite faculty who shall be our torch bearers during this event. First of all, we have our very respected Professor Shibu John, Dean and Professor from Department of Management, School of Management and Business Studies, Jamia Hamdard. I got a quick one for you, sir. What is or what are the most important traits one should possess to succeed as a researcher? This question has been, now mumbling minds for quite some time, and we have been getting certain queries around it. Would love to hear your thoughts on this, sir. Over to you, Professor Shibu John. You are on mute, sir. We can't hear you. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Arun. And at the outset, let me once again welcome all the experts, students, and researchers to Jamia Hamdard. I'll answer your question maybe after, let's say, 2 minutes. But before that, let me also welcome all the participants, all the students, researchers, faculty members from different management schools. Jamia Hamdard, as you all know, that not a very old university. It's a 32-year-old university. And we have a beautiful campus in the South Delhi. So I warmly welcome all the participants. Right now, the program is going online. But hopefully, in times to come, I request all of you to visit Jamia Hamdard campus and see how fairly we are doing in the campus. Jamia Hamdard, like I said, that it's not a very old university, but in the last 32 years, since we started our operations in 1989, has achieved a lot of milestones. Our university is one of the best universities in terms of pharmaceutical education, health education, management education, information technology education. We have around 9,000 plus students in the campus, and we have around 11 schools, and mostly the university is tilted towards health sciences. We have a good nursing school, Unani medicine, conventional medicine as well as modern medicine, pharmacy, all those schools. Now, that's brief about the Jamia Hamdard University. And I, sincerely thank both Dr. Jamshed and Dr. Asad for organizing this wonderful program, 5-day program. And at the outset, I also want to thank the HOD and other faculty members for supporting these young faculty members. As you asked the question, that what is important for today's researchers?
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for being late for something.
No problem, sir.
We welcome you once again. Thank you.
So the question that you asked me, I personally feel that one important parameter that we should focus while doing the literature review. So, we guide a lot of PhD students in the campus in the department, and we realize that students have really shortcuts.
Professor K, we would request you to mute yourself, sir. We are getting something over here. Thank you. Sorry, Shibu, sir. Please carry on.
Yeah, I was talking about the importance of literature review. The literature review is something which will give you a kind of platform to identify your research problems. Those problems which were already, there are many problems which are already covered. So through literature review, you can identify your problem, identification, and variable will give you kind of a platform to identify your objectives. So I personally feel that doing a proper literature review is the key for doing research.
Point taken and noted, sir. I am sure this is going to help a lot of researchers out there. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah, thank you, Arun. I'll over to the other members.
Right, sir. That was pretty inspiring. I'm sure we all must have learned it, some or the other parts in our research for this. My next question is to Professor Dr. Reshma Nasreen, Dean of Students' Welfare and Professor from Department of Management, SMBS, Jamia Hamdard. A very good morning, ma'am. The question for you that I've got is that what impresses you in a researcher? Any specific skill that you look out for?
Thank you, Arun. And continuing with the welcome, Uh, on behalf of the Honorable Vice Chancellor, let me welcome Professor Bhatt and Professor Dwivedi. Sir could not participate today because of some exigency, but I convey his best wishes to the organizers for a good event. And I thank the ATAL initiative, this partnership. I hope, like our dean said, Professor Shibujan, that we have a huge campus and a very green cover in the South Delhi. So all the participants who are interacting with us for the first time, I hope you have a learning experience. And maybe post-pandemic, we hope that post-pandemic comes really soon and we have an opportunity to host you all at Jamia Hamdard. Coming to the question, Arun, what impresses me in a researcher, first and foremost, is his or the researcher's capability of out-of-box thinking. Because most of the research that we have seen so far, and because we tend to follow a toe path. So what I think is we should have, as Professor John said, that you should have a very good literature review wherein you get an idea how people have worked and how things can be expedited. But every research has to contribute to the field of academic knowledge incrementally. And we say it's a path-breaking research. I believe no research is possible if it is not path-breaking. So with every incremental addition to the volume of the data of knowledge that we bring in, so the first trait that I see is the capability of analytical thinking. Analytical with a interpretive mindset, wherein you are able to bring in your vision to the whole research problem. Of course, the groundwork is very, very important. You should have a good and apart from that, I think for literature review, you need to be a voracious reader. And this capability of learning, you should have the ability to imbibe knowledge and continuously keep on looking for materials which may corroborate or which may differ from your academic thought or your research problem. So analytical thinking, out of the box thinking, voracious reader, and most of all, through the process of research, because we have got a minimum time span of 3 years and then it goes on to 5 years, you shouldn't lose your train of thought. And the fire should be in your belly. Your supervisor should not be time and again putting the fire to your tail. So you'll burn yourself, you'll burn the city, and you'll burn, the fire may also extinguish. So the fire should be in your belly. For 5 years, you have to be self-motivated. And the end of the research, your presentation of your research should be very lucid. So I think your communication skills, how you may analyze lots of things, and at the end of the day, if you're not able to present it in a way which gives a direction to future researcher, then somewhere or the other, your work will get into the archives. So I think these are the 4 things I think a researcher should have around. Thank you so much for the question.
Yeah, can I just add one more point to what Dr. Professor Reshma has said? The applicability of your research outcome. The research, whatever research outcome you may do, all best of the research methodology part and data collection analysis. But if your outcome is not, giving some kind of application, whatever outcome has achieved through your research has to be applied, and it should be applicable to the industry, to the country, to the society. So application part also, I give a lot of importance.
Very well added, sir. And thank you so much, Reshma ma'am, for elaborating it in such a manner that all of us can comprehend. We appreciate your knowledge on this, and we also appreciate your keenness to share that knowledge with all of us. Really appreciate that. Moving on to our next guest, let me now introduce you all to our guest of honor today, Dr. K.N. Bhatt. Dr. K.N. Bhatt is a professor of economics at the GB Pant Social Science Institute, University of Allahabad. He's an he's a professional researcher in social sciences with several years of research and teaching experience in development, environment, educational planning, and management studies. We are delighted to have you here with us, sir. We'd be grateful if you could share a few lines about your journey in all of your fields so far. Professor K.N. Bhatt, please go ahead, sir.
Good morning to each and every one of you. Thank you for connecting me to Jamia Hamdard. I have been knowing this university for so many years. Thank you, organizers, particularly your Vice Chancellor, your deans and everyone, plus Muhammad Jamsed, whom I know for so many years together. You remembered me. Thank you very much. Yes, my journey is of around 40 years in a social science research institute. And so far, I understand research from the point of view of a social scientist. There are two types of things, The theoretical research is based basically on logic. And that logic is theorized and generalized. And second is method-based research, where we use data. We collect data from any source and try to apply some techniques to that collected data. Question arises here. How you collect that information? If I don't say data, suppose I say information. When you collect that information, how you analyze that is a statistical application or a technique to make interpretation out of that. Whether it is interpreting to something new or not, or it is going to the reality or not, here lies the point. And so far your topic is concerned, here you are saying structural equation modeling and artificial neural network in management research. Yeah, this you have a technique. When you have already the data or information that you are trying to interpret it. This is one part. But first part is more important. By which method you collect that data, that information, is the basic. That will lead to the real policy applications. That will lead to the true value as the population suggests. If that is not correct, information collection is not correct, then your data, your interpretation and your results would be misleading. And when we are talking of method, in method, your research must lead to policy applications. What type of policy suggestions, what type of policy applications you are making? If your sample is, there is one dimension, other dimension of research is how you sample out of the population. That is of core importance. If you are biased in sampling, if you are going by the method of convenience, then the value of your data, whatever simulation models you apply, whatever statistical mathematical techniques you apply, the result would be biased, misleading. Friends, we all know why Indian planning failed. One of the reasons also is wrong data, wrong interpretation from the wrong data. As an economist, if I have not sampled out my sample from the total population, and if it is not leading to the true value as if I am getting from the population, then my policy suggestions, my policy initiatives, as I suggest, would be misleading. This is another part. One more thing I would like to tell here. You may be social scientists, you may be physicists, or you may be physical science people. I don't know because time is very short. I am not aware what kind of audience listening to me. But my training in social sciences suggests me that a researcher, when seeking for information and seeking for writing a study, should treat oneself as the beggar of a data. If I explain further, in a train journey, you may have seen so many beggars coming around you. But out of 20, all passengers give money to only one beggar. Why? This is a big question. Researcher is similarly a beggar of information. From the sample or from the population, he or she is trying to seek. So, if you remember this aspect of data on which you are applying your techniques, statistical techniques, or whatever you say modeling, that will lead to very good results. If you are rapport building with your respondents, informants, information givers is correctly worked out, you have made a perfect relationship with your informants, then the information would be nearer, quite nearer to the true value. Otherwise, it would not be. Here, I would like to add, for the past so many years, from 51 to 90, we used planning model for the development of India. And in that planning model, a lot of researches were conducted and the data came and policy initiatives were made, but almost they all failed. After 40 years of journey, we completely pursued another model of development. So I'm again emphasizing, if your information, the basic information on which you are modeling is not correct, that policy would be failed. The development process will fail. This is another warning thing. One more thing I would like to suggest here, I'll not take much time of yours. There can be so many methods of seeking information. There can be historical methods, anthropological methods, participant observation, non-participant observation. There are so many methods. I'm not going into the detail. As Jamshed told me, within that time, I would like to add these few points. After 90, I hope you would have heard the name of Paulo Freire. Paulo Freire wrote a small book around 80-90 pages. That is Pedagogy of the Poor. From there, this participant, non-participant observation methods emerged. And now all UN bodies, all development agencies try to find those experts who are expert of these non-participant observation methods, in which your informants become the researchers themselves, in which the participants become not only information givers, they become the planners of development of their area, of their village, of their region. And therefore we call these methods as not only seeking data, but we call developmental interventions in itself. If you are having this kind of ethical things in your mind, and if you are going to the informants with the concept that I am a beggar to seek the information, and the best beggar will get the best information. As I told you, the example of the train beggar. So, friends, I would try to close here. If you have any specific questions, and I would be happy to answer and continue. No problem. I am not able to understand how much time you have, but main points I have highlighted here. If any one of you wants to ask anything, I'll be happy to respond. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we would request you to mute your mic. It's again popping a lot.
Pardon?
Can you please mute your? Thank you. That's all, sir. That's all I was asking for. It was really kind of you to enlighten all of us with such insights that you must have garnered over the years of your journey, Dr. Bhatt. Thank you so much for taking out time to articulate all of that to the audience and to myself as well. Really appreciate that. Our next guest for today is Dr. Rakesh Kumar Dwivedi. A very good morning and a warm welcome to you, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you. Dr. Dwivedi is working as a principal and professor in College of Computing Sciences and Information Technology, CCSIT, Tirthankar Mahavir University in Moradabad. Sir has an amazing and I'm sure enriched experience of 21 plus teaching years with 4 year plus as an industry expert as well. Sir, as an industry expert, what advice would you give to our young researchers? And I think this is going to be an extension to what our HOD sir also pointed out, that our research should always have an industry outcome. So would like to hear your thoughts on the same.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. First of all, I would like to congratulate Jamia Hamdard Department of Management, Jamia Hamdard University, New Delhi, who is hosting this 5 days faculty development program in collaboration with AICTE Training and Learning ATAL Academy. You people are organizing 5 days faculty development program on structural equation modeling and artificial neural network in management research. Dr. Muhammad Jamshed and Dr. Ashad, you people have chosen a very good topic for spreading this research, especially related to the structural equation modeling.
I feel there's some internet connectivity issue at Dr. Dwivedi's end. Let's give him a minute or two to hop in back on the session. Dr. Dwivedi, are you with us?
And am I audible to you, Dr. Jamshed?
Now you are, sir. Now we can hear you.
Okay. So am I audible perfectly to everybody?
That's right, sir. Now you are.
Okay, fine. So I'm coming to your question, Dr. Jamshed. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Jamia Hamdard University who is hosting this 5 days faculty development program on structural equation modeling and artificial neural network in collaboration with AICTE. As your head of the department has said, that literature review is the key, and your dean has also narrated that incremental nature of research is going to serve the purpose of new education policy, and our renowned resource person Professor Bhatt has also narrated the type of research. My dear friends, the major objective is to achieve full human potential to ensure the progressive and prosperous future of our country. And in an outset of new education policy, to discuss the vision of new education policy and to expect the better outcome, this topic of structural equation modeling with respect to ANN, artificial neural network, is very much helpful to create an awareness about structural reforms in education system is the key for a future. My dear friends, to analyze the curricular aspect and pedagogical reforms with respect to India, because now the multidisciplinary education is going to take place in future. So how we have to implement the policies and which is pertaining to multidisciplinary education and technology in education, because we have an idea, we must translate those ideas in form of innovation, and foremost, as Professor Bhatt has said, can-do spirit. If we combine these three ideas, innovation and can-do spirit together, perhaps this structural modeling, which is the basic theme of this 5 days faculty development program, can serve a better purpose. In this world of technology, this confluence will be an ideal platform for enthusiasts, for all faculty members who is interested in startup and practice-based learning. Another point that in multidisciplinary education, that cooperation model is most suited in our framework. This is a matter of detailed study, in fact, to which academic model would be the best for us. I thought there is one model which can benefit to all people, that first of all, we have to work for data, because data is a fuel as of now. And the methods, which method could be applied on that data? Either the data is qualitative data, quantitative data, qualitative data, what kind of learning methods we have to apply on that kind of data? Because as a national label also, we have a national innovation and startup policy, which is launched by Government of India in the year 2019 for the student and for the researchers and the faculty members of higher education of India. That may be used as a guiding framework to enable the institutes to actively engage the researchers, the PhD scholars, the postgraduate scholars, faculty members to innovate and to create an entrepreneurial culture. Because technology development since last 30 years is what I can say, massive. And you could see, in fact, I could quote one of the sentence of the Indian Prime Minister, that IT plus IT equal to IT. That internet technology plus information technology is India tomorrow. And you could see, first of all, we have to work to secure our network infrastructure. and other remote access methods, because many technological advancement is going on in the development of IoT, that has enabled the opportunities for both businesses and individuals to connect their devices and control them with the help of big data. It plays a significant role in a world where everything is connected to the internet. So almost every business across every industry is utilizing the internet and IoT based services to monitor and to predict their business models and performances, as well as advances their existing systems. So as this technology is regarded as the significant frontier that can have a substantial impact on almost all aspects of human lives and the ongoing research. So, in fact, a lot of tools are available. The time is not permitting me to discuss all those tools. However, you can take the advantage of SPSS, MATLAB, and other tools. Or if commercially it is not available, many researchers are developing their own tools to do market analysis, to do competitive analysis, and by using those analysis we can model our business, and thereafter we may go to test it, and after performing the market survey, we may finally float our services or products onto the market. So this is all from my side. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to share my views with respect to the structural modeling using artificial neural network. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for sharing these insights. I'm sorry, with all of us, Dr. Dwivedi. Really appreciate that gesture. Now, moving on to our first session with Professor Mohammad Naved Khan. A quick introduction about Professor Mohammad Naved Khan. He's got a teaching experience of more than 20 years with his interest areas that include marketing, consumer behavior, and research methodology. More than 100 of his research papers have been published in leading national as well as international journals. He has successfully guided around 28 doctoral students, which is itself a milestone. We are honored to hear from you, Professor, about your journey and what are your contributions in these areas and how you have nurtured the saplings of research into full-fledged trees now. Over to you, Professor Mohammad Naved Khan. Please take over, sir.
Arun,
Yes,
Arun,
sir. Yes, sir.
inaugural, we should conclude the inaugural and then we will invite Professor Navid sir, because the guests are waiting to conclude this inaugural session.
I'm so sorry. I missed out on that part, sir. My bad. So sorry about that. Dr. Jamshed, please go ahead and you may conclude the session for the inauguration.
Good morning, everyone. It's our pleasure that we have such a wonderful guest from the research fraternity, especially Dr. Bhatt, Professor Bhatt, and Dwivedi sir. They have actually joined this session with we have just informed them at a last mile because there are some issues from our side, and I'm very thankful for my head of department, Dean sir, and DSW ma'am, to to encourages us to conduct this program and allowed us for conducting such sessions. I am very thankful to the Vice Chancellor, sir, Vice Chancellor, and the Hamdard National Foundation to inspire us to begin with such a research journey, and all the helping hand, the mentor, just like Naveed sir, they all are actually the pillar for our strength. We will not get achieve these things. We will not conduct these things. We have never think about doing that. And this is their guidance, their support, and their mentoring, which help us to reach to that level. And equally, we need the support from the participant. Each of you are the pillar, and we cannot be succeed in any journey of our life when we all will not work together. I hope that we will listen very wonderful things in the next sessions, and I'm welcoming Professor Navesa to please start. And sorry, sir, I know that your habit, we are very delayed. I'm extremely sorry, apology for my part, because we know sir from the time of our studies, and sir is very punctual in all his thing. Sorry, sir, and please begin. Thanks a lot.
Naveed sir, you're on mute.
Yes, sir. I think you're mute, sir.
Hello. Am I audible now? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think there was some confusion because I tried to log in and then I logged out because I found somebody else presenting. So I thought maybe there is some confusion. I checked out with Dr. Asad, then he said that no, that's the introduction part going on. So again, I logged in. Okay, so thank you very much for a nice introduction, and my best wishes are with all of you, and I hope that this workshop will be a success. And let me start because I have been assigned the task of discussing something about identifying research problem, and then I'll also be discussing something about questionnaire design. So I'm Naveed. I teach at Aligarh Muslim University for those who are meeting me for the first time. And I hope my full screen is visible to you, or is it visible to you in two parts? Hello. Can somebody help me?
It's in two parts, sir. It's in two parts.
It's in two parts. Okay. Okay. Just a moment. Now is it full screen?
Yes, sir, it is.
Now it's full screen. I hope it's not in two parts now. Hello.
No, sir. It's yet not resolved.
Okay. Okay. Just let me check out what's happening. It's full screen.
Hello, sir, it is in the.
No, sir.
It's still on full screen.
No, sir.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what's happening.
Sir, excuse me, good morning. You can present your entire screen, then it will be, I think, in full screen mode.
Hello. Hello.
Sir, fine, sir.
No, it's fine. Okay. Okay. Sorry for this technical glitch. I don't know why it happened. Okay. So I'll be discussing about identifying research problem. See, if in fact, I'll be discussing it, as it is this, from the point of view of different textbooks and what different researchers have tried to point out regarding how to identify a research problem. So first of all, let us get ourselves introduced to this term decision making, because see, when we it's basic to all managers, and how we make decisions and how managers make decisions about various problems, opportunities they face. And decision making basically is a process of resolving a problem or choosing among alternative opportunities. Remember one thing, that an opportunity for one entity may be a problem for another. So decision making is the process of resolving a problem. So some of you may, or some organizations or some entities may look at particular thing as a problem. Others may look at it as an opportunity. So every business problem, or for example, the situation pertaining to decision making, we can classify or place it on a continuum. And this continuum, on one end, we have the complete certainty, and on the other end, we have absolute ambiguity. So why, because we need to understand that why exactly we try to identify a problem. So see, on the left-hand side, we have absolute ambiguity. The right-hand side, we have absolute, sorry, there is some problem. Complete certainty, complete certainty, and on the other side, we have absolute ambiguity. So if you look at certainty, see, decision makers here in this case has all the information. This is a very rare kind of condition. We generally, or any entity does not have complete information about anything. Then when we say uncertainty, remember here what is happening is that the general nature of whatever you are dealing with, the problem, it is known. But what we encounter is that we don't have complete information about it. Whatever alternatives exist, they are not, all of them are not known to us. And for this, what we have to do is that we have to collect or generate some additional information, and then that can be of help to us in addressing the problem. So this, and how we'll do that? Through research. And the other end, we had the ambiguity. So here, the other end, we have, when we say ambiguity, so the nature of the problem is totally unclear to us, as the term itself makes it very clear. And it is one of the most difficult decision-making situations, because we are not clear about what exactly is happening. So initially, for example, the pandemic, when it started, if we go for an example, so when it started, the problem was that we didn't know what exactly is happening. Because this was for the first time that this kind of virus, the human race had come across, and there was a lot of ambiguity. It was unclear. Things were unclear. We were not even now. We are not clear how exactly it started. Even now, we are not clear how to deal with it. Every day, what we are noticing is that some new variant or it's emerging, and scientists, they're racing to address the issue. They're trying to find a vaccine for it, and all of us know that a vaccine making is a very long drawn process. So there are different alternatives available. Different types of vaccines are there. Different processes can be adopted by us or researchers, for example, for developing them. But each process has its advantages, disadvantages. So there is uncertainty. There are issues with it. So we started with ambiguity, but what happened was that as we carried on with the research, so what we found, we started understanding that what exactly the problem is, and then researchers, they developed vaccines, and as we know, the different types of vaccines have been developed, and some of them are effective for certain types of variants, others are not. And the vaccine makers are claiming that, for example, the latest version Omicron, they're saying that we will be tinkering with the existing vaccine, then we'll make it more effective from the point of view of the latest version. But the problem is that still we don't have complete information about it. So see, the last certainty, we don't have complete information. So it is difficult for anybody to make a decision as of now that what exactly should be done. So what we are doing is that, based upon whatever we have learned during the last 2 years, based upon that, steps are being taken by various governments, by various research organizations, and efforts are being made to arrive at or find a solution to the current problem. Now, if we look at, from the point of view of business research, see, when we say degree of uncertainty of a problem, based upon that, we can classify our researches broadly into 3 types. And with this, I'll move on to discussing more about problem definition, problem identification. So I think most of you may have already heard about these 3 types of research designs or researches which we can carry out. So the first is the exploratory research, the second is descriptive research, and then we have causal research. So, sorry. See, exploratory research, as the term itself indicates, so if we are not clear about the problem, so we will be going for it. So it's the initial research we are carrying out, assume that to understand the problem, to clarify the problem, to define the problem. And whenever we go for this kind of research, the outcome is whatever we are generating, it is data is qualitative in nature. And when we move to the next stage, that is descriptive, here what's happening is that we try to describe the characteristics, and the basic understanding is, or the assumption here is, that there is some understanding of the problem. And how we have gained that understanding? It is assumed that through exploratory research. And then when we move to the next stage, that is causal, here what is assumed is that we are very clear about what the problem is, we are clear about what the variables are. And then here what we do is that we try to study the effect of the cause and effect relationship between the variables which are of interest from the point of view of whatever problem we are encountering or whatever research we are doing. So with this broad brief understanding, let me take you to the problem definition process. See, in certain texts, you will find that this is how they have tried to define this problem definition process. First is the tasks which are involved in problem definition. So as a researcher, discussion has to be done with the decision maker. Interviews have to be carried out with the experts. Secondary data analysis has to be done. Qualitative research, as we were discussing, exploratory research has to be done. So all this will go into the definition of the problem. Then we have to understand the context in which that problem is occurring, that what we call the environmental context of the problem. Then generally in text it's said that then the problem definition or the step 1 of problem definition begins here. So we have to understand that problem from the point of view of management will be different from the point of view of what is being or how it is being viewed at from the point of view of the market, or from the point of view of business, or from the point of view of entity which is encountering that problem. So we have to understand that there are differences as far as these two problem definition aspects are concerned. And then we have to remember another thing, that we have to be very clear about the approach to the problem. That is, we have to have proper theoretical foundations. Then we have to be clear about what kind of model. So models can be of different types. You will find that in text they've tried to describe verbal models, graphical models, mathematical models. And in fact, the structural equation modeling and whatever is the theme of this particular workshop, it revolves around this, that model development, and then how exactly these concepts can be applied to real life problems and to solve the real life problems, and then come up with a solution from the point of view of the society and from the point of view of the industry. Then we have to be clear about that what exactly is the research question. We have to be clear about the hypothesis development process. What's a hypothesis? It's a conjectural statement or it's an assumption. And then what are the specifications of information needed? And the last step in this is generally considered to be the research design part. That what we discussed just in the previous slide, that which particular design you will be adopting, how you will be going about, what will be the framework that you will be following as far as carrying out your work is concerned. Then certain researchers say that have to go for problem audit. And what exactly is problem audit? They say that it's a comprehensive examination of some kind of whatever business problem is being faced, or whatever problem in general. We can say even a problem, general problem that any entity is facing, because it's not necessary that we should always it will be in the context of a business. Problem can be of any type, and we have to understand what's the origin, just like what we were discussing in case of the coronavirus. So we have to look at it, or we have to carry out what we, in technical terms, what we call a problem audit. So the events that led to the decision that action is needed, or history of the problem, alternative courses of action available to the decision maker, criteria that will be used to evaluate the alternative courses of action, potential actions that are likely to be suggested based on the research findings. So now if you look at this problem audit, this slide, and if you try to relate it to what we encountered or what happened, for example, in the context of the pandemic, and how it has progressed, and how research is researchers are going about trying to understand this particular virus, you will find that it fits well into what is given here as far as the problem audit is concerned. So the and from the point of view of business, it is said that the manner in which the decision maker will use each item of information in making a decision, because no two decision makers will proceed in exactly the same fashion, because no two individuals are exactly the same. So in this context, it is said that the corporate culture as it relates to decision making. So every organization has a different culture. It has a different way of addressing issues. So that also has to be taken into account. Then as far as interaction between the decision maker and researcher is concerned, remember that researcher may be expert as far as his or her field is concerned, but it's not necessary that always the decision maker will also be aware of all the techniques and the statistical tools, and, for example, the nitty-gritties of research, because decision maker is looking at that problem from an entirely different perspective. So, another aspect that we have to keep in mind is that there has to be, interaction between the decision maker and the researcher. And this interaction between these two entities is generally, it is said to be characterized by 7 C's, and that is communication, cooperation, confidence, candor, closeness, continuity, creativity. So from these, angles or perspectives, remember that the interaction has to happen, because unless there is clarity of thought, unless the decision maker and the researcher regarding a particular problem, they are on the same plane, they will, we cannot proceed further. We will not be able to properly understand, because it may be that as a researcher, I may zero down on a particular issue and think that that's the problem, but from the point of view of management, or from the point of view of decision maker, it may not be exactly the problem which they think that is affecting their business. So it is always advisable that we commit things to writing, so that there is no confusion later on as far as what was arrived at and how things were understood as far as the problem is concerned. So there has to be a close cooperation, proper communication has to be there between the decision maker and the researcher. If we are trying to understand a problem, and there has to be a common meeting ground. And remember that the language that the researcher will be talking should be the language that the decision maker should be able to understand, and vice versa is also true. Then what are the factors that we need to consider as far as the environmental context of the problem is concerned? So here it is suggested that past information and forecast, we have to go and look into them, resources and the constraints, because remember that no organization is operating without constraints. Every organization, every entity is operating under certain constraints. So in the context of business, or in the context of consumer behavior, we have to understand that what exactly was the buyer behavior, what is the legal environment So even if we remove buyer behavior and if we don't look at it from the point of view of exactly business, so if we try to understand from the point of view of the environmental context, remember that we have to be very clear about the legal environment, we have to be clear about the economic environment, we have to be clear about the business, the marketing, or the technological skills that exist. And this basically provides us the environmental context. Now let us move to problem discovery and definition and see that what has been suggested by various researchers. So if you look at what Einstein said that formulation of problem is often more essential than its solution. So it is said to be the most important step. It is the first step. And generally what happens is you will find that we spend minimum time, we do not spend sufficient time to understand the problem. And that is the reason why towards the end what happens is that we realize that whatever steps we have taken, they have not led to the problem or whatever we are encountering being addressed effectively by us as individuals, or by us as business entities, or by us in whichever sense you look at it. So if you're clear about the problem, I think you will agree that it will provide us a proper direction. It will, but for that, see, there has to be proper effort on our part. We have to look at it and try to understand it so that we are able to properly define it. And remember that we should not be confusing or mistaking symptoms for a problem. Just like, see, if somebody is suffering from fever, so fever is not the problem. Fever is just a symptom. If somebody is, for example, if the sales of an organization are dipping, then the dip in sales, it's a symptom of some underlying problem. So we have to look at it from this point of view, that what is the underlying problem? So we should not be grappling with symptoms only. Symptoms can help us in identifying, and we have to look at it from this point of view, that these are symptoms, and unless we are clear about and there is proper distinction between symptoms and problem, we will not be able to proceed properly. So problem means management problem, business problem. So management problem basically covers all possible aspects as far as problem is concerned, because management can be used in different contexts. So if a problem is not clear, then as we were discussing earlier, we have to go for exploratory research. And remember that the outcome of exploratory research is always in qualitative form. So we'll be generating qualitative data. It is difficult for anybody to quantify data which has been generated through, with the help of exploratory study or research that we have carried out. Okay. In certain researchers, they have tried to look at this process of problem definition from this perspective, that we have to ascertain the decision maker's objective first. We have to understand as a researcher the background of the problem. Then we have to isolate and identify the problem and not the symptoms. We have to determine the unit of analysis, that what is that unit that we should analyze or we should study, so that we are able to understand what exactly is the problem. Then we have to be very clear about what are the variables or that we are of relevance to us, that are important to us. And then we have to state the research questions and then the research objectives. And once we are clear about it, we can proceed, and our research will lead to some outcome which may be which will address the problem, or which will be beneficial from the point of view of society or from the point of view of the organization where the study or that problem was being encountered, or for example some kind of issue was there and that had to be addressed. But when we look at, as I was sharing with you earlier, that we have to be very clear about what are the symptoms, difference between symptoms and problems. So a simple example I have taken from one place. So let me just share with you. See here, the problem, for example, is that there is a neighborhood and there is a swimming pool, and some people, they were part of that, a group which was using that swimming pool. And suppose the swimming pool was located in a particular city. And then what happened was that over the years, people have not been joining or membership has been declining, and a new water park with some advanced facilities and it has been opened in that city, in that town some time back, and that appears to be the problem. But if you look at it from the point of view of problem definition, see, then what has happened is that the neighborhood residents, they prefer the expensive water park. And why? Because they have a negative image of the swimming pool, which earlier, was because that was the only thing available to them. Now, what has happened is because of the opening up or coming into picture of this new theme park or water park, which has more advanced facilities. It has a wave pool, it has water slides, it has several other facilities, which, where with the help of which people can enjoy and get more of entertainment. So now what is happening is that these are simply the symptoms. So basically what has happened is that neighborhood residents are now preferring expensive water park. And why? Because they have a negative image of the swimming pool. So what is the true problem? The true problem is that there have been demographic changes. So over the years, what has happened is that children in this neighborhood, which was around 20 years old, now they have grown up, and these children who earlier were visiting this swimming pool, now they no longer swim anywhere. Maybe so they have grown. That may be one of the reasons, and that may be the true problem. So see how it started. The symptom was membership has been declining. The problem definition based on symptoms could have been that neighborhood residents now prefer going to the expensive park. Now, some researchers may have kept on grappling with this particular thing, assuming that that's a real problem, and we have to find a solution to this. But the true problem is that there have been demographic changes and children have grown up, and it basically the children were patronizing that particular swimming pool. They were basically using that swimming pool. So as they have grown up, they have no time, they are busy with their jobs. Maybe over the years what has happened is that they no longer have interest in going to that particular place, for example, to swim. So these older residents, they no longer want to swim anywhere. So that is one of the reasons. So that's the true problem, which in this case, which has been identified or which can be identified. So when we talk of problem, see, we have to be very clear about that. What are the research objectives? So after identifying and clarifying the problem, whether it is through exploratory research or, for example, whichever mode we have used, so we have to be very clear about the research objectives. So a statement of problem to be investigated. What's the statement? That statement of problem to be investigated basically is the research objective. So we have to list objectives. Either they can be listed in order of importance, or, for example, we can follow the funnel approach that we move from general to specific objectives. So different researchers follow different approaches. There is no hard and fast rule regarding this. So, and it is said that the best expression of a research objective is a well-defined testable hypothesis. Now, hypothesis in simple terms, and please remember that hypothesis, whenever we use in singular sense, we use SIS, HYPOTHESIS. Whenever we use in the plural, SES is used. So hypothesis is nothing but a conjectural statement that can be refuted or accepted by empirical data. And similarly, data is plural, and datum, DATUM, datum is singular. So hypothesis is a conjectural statement. It is an imaginary relationship, you can say, between variables of interest. So now, based upon your empirical data or based upon empirical data which you are generating, we generally test the hypothesis, and based upon that testing, we can either accept it or we can refute it. Though in technical terms, when we are going in for hypothesis testing, so we don't use the term that we accepted or the hypothesis that is beyond the scope of discussion here. So now the next thing is, if you recall, research design, another term that we use. So this design, research design in the context of problem definition, it refers to, it basically tells us the methods and the procedures that we'll be following as far as addressing that problem or proceeding with our study is concerned. So it is a master plan, it is a framework, or we can imagine that it's a blueprint for conducting the research. So as far as the selection of design is concerned, remember that it is complicated by and it depends upon the researcher because different techniques, different methods are available. So how, which particular method the researcher will be adopting, and also keeping in mind the kind of problem which you are grappling with. So we decide that which particular design, just like if you recall, we discussed that if we are at the initial stages, we really don't have much idea regarding what exactly is the problem. So we may have to go for exploratory research, and the outcome of that will be qualitative data. So sorry, one may decide on pursuing or browsing or going through secondary data first. We can go for case study, we can go for a survey, we can carry out some kind of experimentation, or we can even go for simulation, so as to understand first of all what exactly is the problem, and then based upon that we may follow different types of designs or methods to carry out our study. Now, as far as research methodology is concerned, and the concept of certainty, ambiguity, absolute certainty and absolute ambiguity. So, if you look at it from that point of view, see the uncertainty associated with the research problem, it determines the research methodology, and the degree of research problem. For example, if we are uncertain about the problem, then we have to go for exploratory research, and the research methodology which has been suggested that we should be using at this particular stage is observation. Now, next is that if we are aware of the problem, so in that case, we can go for descriptive research. And if we are going in for descriptive research, the appropriate methodology which has been suggested is survey. Then if the problem has been clearly defined by the researcher, or we are very clear about the problem, then this means that we are very clear about the variables which are in interplay, which are of interest to us, and we can adopt a causal research design. And whenever we go for causal research design, the appropriate methodology that we go for is experimentation. So as we move from left to right, see what's happening is that more and more clarity is there as far as the problem is concerned. So exploratory research, it means that the problem is not clear to us. As we move to descriptive research, this means that now we have gained more clarity about the problem. And once we move to the stage of causal research, this means that the problem has been clearly defined. So whichever way you look at, whether you look at it from the left to right to left or left to right, you will find that one thing you have to remember is that whenever we are trying to understand the problem, then the methodology that we have to go for and is or the type of design or the type of research that we carry out is exploratory research, and the methodology that we'll be adopting will be observation. And on the other extreme, we have that if we are very clear about the variables which are at interplay, and we have been able to properly define the problem, then we go for causal research. And remember that as researchers, as academic researchers in the field of academics, most of the time it is difficult for us to go for causal research because we don't have the resources, we don't have the time to go for experimentation. So, researchers have found other ways, for example, of going in for this. So they at times go for simulation, and based upon that, they arrive at certain findings, and then based upon that, certain decisions are taken. Now, how does it fit into the research process, all that we are discussing? See, we start with problem, discovery, and definition. And once we are clear about that, we move to the stage of research design. Once we are clear about the design, then we move to the stage of sampling. Once we are clear that it will be probability sampling, non-probability sampling, then we go for collection of data or generation of data. And once we have generated the data, we analyze the data. Of course, we will analyze after processing it. And once we have processed and analyzed the data, we arrive at certain conclusions, and then we prepare a report. And see the interesting thing, the outcome of or the last stage which is given here after conclusions and report is again discovery and definition. So why is it given here in this form? Why? Because at times the end result of research is such that it requires more research to understand the outcome. So some aspects of, or some of the findings of your research may be such that they may be requiring more research to better understand them. So that's why we say it's a cyclical process and it goes on and on. Why? Because you must have seen that sometimes in our research papers and doctoral thesis, we also write, a future research section or future directions for other researchers. What we share with them is that, see, these aspects of our research are not clear and they may require more of research to understand, or sometimes during the course of our study we realize that we are leaving out some of the issues, we are not covering all the variables of interest, and because of various constraints under which we operate. So we give suggestions to researchers, and this is how this goes on and on. Then as far as the approach to addressing a particular problem is concerned, so we have to be very clear about the theoretical foundation. So that's why we go for secondary data. We go through existing theories on the subject. We go through what are the models which have been suggested, so that we are very clear about the research questions, and then it leads to, as we were discussing initially, we are able to crystallize the hypothesis. And once we are clear about this, we will be very clear about the information needs of our study. Because see, unless we are clear about that what exactly is the problem, we will not be able to properly frame the research questions. And if we are not able to frame the research questions, we will not be able to, if it's an empirical study, we will not be able to generate the right kind of hypothesis. And once we are not clear about that, we will not be able to decide that what are the information needs as far as our research is concerned. So analytical models, verbal models, graphical models, I'll not go into details, but because these terms are concerned, we are clear. We know that analytical, these are a set of variables or some, sorry. Analytical model is a set of variables. Their interrelationships are designed to represent in whole or part some real system or process. Verbal model, for example, is the variables and the relations are stated in prose form, so it's in verbal form they are stated. And graphical models, they are visual. They are used to isolate variables and to suggest directions of relationships. So we already in some way or the other we have heard of these various terms as in the context of models. So graphical models, they are visual, and you will find that this is how they are presented: awareness, for example, understanding, preference, patronage. So mathematical models, you will find that using some kind of equation they are presented. So we have to be very clear about that. What exactly is on the left hand side, what does y mean, and we have to define that. So it is a degree of preference. What does a naught mean, what does ai means, model parameters which are to be estimated statistically. So you will find that mathematical models are represented in this particular form. And then similarly, when we are going in for development of research questions and hypothesis, see, we have to have proper understanding of the theoretical framework. We have to have a proper understanding that what exactly is be it marketing research problem or business research problem. So what are the components of the research problem? Once we are clear about that, what are the variables of interest, we will be able to, what are the issues, what exactly is the problem. And once we have been able to isolate and distinguish between the symptoms and the problem, then what happens is that we can move to the stage of identifying the research questions. And once we have done that, of course, we will be able to frame the hypothesis from the point of view of our work. And research questions, they are nothing but refined statements of the specific components of the problem. And as far as hypothesis is concerned, remember that we have discussed in earlier also, hypothesis is a conjectural statement or an assumption or an unproven statement about a relationship which you are hypothesizing that exists between the variables of interest. So often a hypothesis is a possible answer to the research question. So research questions are refined statements of a specific components of a problem, and how does it fit into the overall scheme of things. So this is how it fits into the research process. And if you look at it from the point of view of various stages of research, so whatever we have discussed, I think let me just emphasize here, I hope. So whatever we have discussed basically is it pertain to this particular part. Okay, so problem definition, problem discovery and definition, and then what happens is that once we are clear about that, we move to the stage of research design. And once we are clear about the design, we decide that whether we'll be going in for experimentation or some kind of survey, or whether it will be interview based, it will be face-to-face interaction, whether it will be using questionnaire, which we'll be discussing in the next part of this interaction. So whether it will be, the survey will be done using a structured questionnaire or unstructured questionnaire, that we have to decide. Then it can be observation-based study. Remember, we discussed that if the problem is not clear, then we go for observation, we go for exploratory studies, and then we go for secondary data based studies. And then the next stage is here. We move to the stage of sampling. So sampling, it can be probability sampling, it can be non-probability sampling procedures that we may adopt from the point of view of a study. We generate data. After we have generated or collected the data, we process the data, we analyze the data, we interpret our findings, and then we prepare our report. If you recall, we discussed a few slides back that sometimes the end result of research is such that more of research is required. So again, we can move to problem definition or problem discovery and definition. So sometimes the end result of research may be such that we may require more of research. Now, I like to take questions for some time, and then I'll move to question and design. So questions have come, please. Yes.
Hi, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, please.
Sir, as per you discussed, sir, when you go for an exploratory research, that at that point of time, what should be our thought process regarding making the question of the research?
Sorry, please, can you repeat, please, what you're saying?
Sir, when we are going for an exploratory research,
Yes.
then what should be our main points to look out when we are building those questions?
Okay, so see, I'll be discussing question and design in the next interaction. But see, when we are trying to understand a problem, first of all, see, if we are not clear about the problem, how can we be very clear about what questions to be asked? Are you getting me? So okay, during the exploratory stage, remember, we are trying to explore, we are trying to understand the problem ourselves as a researcher. Imagine that you are a researcher, and as we were discussing, suppose you are you manufacture a certain product, and your product is no more being purchased in volumes that you were selling earlier. So it's a problem that you are facing. So for you are not clear what exactly is happening. Why is it that people are no more buying your offering? So you will start somewhere. So that if you are clear about the problem, for example, if you know that it's an issue of price, so you can lower the price. But you have tried that thing, you have tried to lower the price, but what happened was that despite the fact that you lowered the price, people still are not buying it. So the problem lies somewhere else. So we have to at times go for this exploratory studies, or we have to follow this particular design if what we realize is that we are ourselves not clear about the problem. So if we are not clear about the problem in social sciences, or for example, the studies that we do, at times you will find, or at least I have noted that people, they have prepared a research paper. They have used a structured questionnaire in that. and then based upon the structured questionnaire, they have generated data, and based upon that data, they have carried out some kind of higher order statistical analysis. Maybe they have used structural equation modeling. And in the methodology part, they mentioned that their study was an exploratory study. So see, they are wrong in that. Why? Because it's not an exploratory study. Once you are very clear about that what will be the hypothesis, you are very clear about that what exactly are the variables regarding which data has to be generated by you, it is no more an exploratory study. Why? Because maybe what you have done is that you have used a ready-made questionnaire. Maybe you have picked up, scale items from different questionnaires. Then you have prepared your questionnaire based upon the problem which you are yourself facing, or for example, what you have decided are the objectives of your study based upon whatever topic you are working on. So one has to be very careful when you're in the context of your research papers or doctoral thesis, when you're claiming that your work is an exploratory work. If it's an exploratory work, I've been repeating again and again, the outcome of exploratory studies or exploratory research would be qualitative. It will be qualitative data. And what is qualitative data? It will be in the form of words. It will be in the form of sentences. It will be in the form of phrases. It will be in the form of paragraphs. So the outcome will be in this form. And let me repeat that it is difficult for us to quantify responses from different individuals, which are in the form of phrases, in the form of paragraphs, and quantify them in the form of some symbol or some number, and then analyze it. And for that, we have entirely different types of softwares which are available, and none of those softwares, in fact, is perfect, in the sense that a lot of training and a lot of nowadays they're using artificial intelligence also for that purposes. So that is required. But remember that once we are clear about the variables of interest, this means that we have moved beyond the stage of exploratory study. So exploratory study, always the outcome will be in the form of phrases, words, paragraphs, or opinions of individuals. So outcome will be qualitative data. It will not be quantitative data. So never claim that your study is exploratory if you have used, for example, or you have used hypothesis, you have gone into higher order structural equation modeling, and so on.
Sir, just a follow-up question.
Yes.
Often in the research papers, we used to see that after doing exploratory research or ethnographic research, they used to build propositions.
Yes.
Like that, yeah. They used to tell that at the end and the findings and all, they used to put like this, that these propositions need to be checked further. So can you just put a few words on these
things? Proposition, when you're saying proposition, basically, it is something which is parallel to hypothesis.
Okay, sir.
Okay. See, in case of, if, for example, you are not in a position to generate data, for example, if for example, you are in the initial stages of your work. So propositions, generally, you will find that it is again, your assumption regarding the relationship that may exist, but here you are still not in a position to empirically test that.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So generally,
good morning, sir.
Generally, you will find that is part of theory building. So what we do is that you come up with certain propositions, you prepare a research paper, your research paper is published, other researchers get ideas, and then what they do is that based upon whatever you theorized, whatever you presented in your work, they get ideas, and then what they may do is that they may try to convert them into specific research objectives. Based upon that, then they may come up with specific hypothesis, and then they may generate empirical data to test those hypotheses.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello. Good morning, sir.
Please. Hello. Can you repeat? There was some crackling. There was some problem. Is it Seema?
Yes, sir. This is Seema Bhadur.
Yes. Can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, sir. So it's basically a follow-up question.
Yes.
And all I wanted to ask is, in the starting journey of a research scholar, so we should emphasize on the exploratory research. This is what you mean, right? Because we are not familiar with the research problem in the initial stage.
I'm not saying that only you should be emphasizing on exploratory research. What I mean to say is that when you are starting with your study, spend sufficient time to understand your problem, to understand that what exactly is the problem, so that towards the end, you later on do not regret that you were not able to crystallize and you were not able to identify all possible variables. Of course, it's not possible to take into account every possible variable given the constraints under which you are working, given the time frame under which you have to complete your work. So what we do is that we identify that these are the various possible variables which may be having a role to play as far as your research work is concerned, or as far as your research objectives are concerned. And then what happens is that as researchers, when we move forward, we identify that these are the variables which are more important in comparison to others. And then we support this with the help of extant literature. We try to show that so researchers in these various contexts, they have tried to study these variables, and you will be on similar lines, you'll be proceeding, and then you will also be working on those variables. Or at times what you may do is that if, for example, you realize that some of the variables have not been studied have not been studied properly or explored in the context of our culture, our country, then you may say that these variables, though they have been studied extensively in the context of other cultures, other countries, but they have not been explored in the context of our culture. So you will like to use them, or you will like to generate data pertaining to those variables in the context of our country, our culture, and then try to see that what exactly are the findings in the context of our country and our culture. So, this replicative studies can be done. That's absolutely fine. I'm not saying that always you should be limiting yourself to exploratory study. But my only emphasis is that once you have decided on a particular, for example, topic, so you should try to go in for the available literature. And through that literature, you should try to identify that what all are the variables that are relevant from the point of view of your topic, from the point of view of your research problem.
Yeah. So, sir, there is one more question. Like, I just wanted to know how to, I would say, how to go for a problem. For example, there are the two different techniques as far as I know. First, you should go for the literature review, and after that, you find up the gap and go for the.
Can you repeat the last part? Can you repeat the last part? There was some sound issue.
Sure, sir. So, I just wanted to know how to find a research gap. Like, as far as my knowledge is concerned, there are the two different views. Either you should go for the literature review first, find the gap from there.
I got it. I got your question. Very pertinent question, because see, whatever theory and whatever I have discussed, it may not, you may not be able to connect it unless I share with you that what was the logic behind discussing all this. See, as a researcher, or as researchers, or as students of this particular field, or for example, when you're going in for a doctoral study, a problem that we encounter is that what is that topic that I should be deciding for the purpose of my research paper or for the purpose of my doctoral thesis? I think that's the crux of your question. Am I right? So see, what I'll suggest is that what we should be doing is, as I was sharing earlier, that there may be certain topics which may have been extensively researched in the context of other cultures. Certain topics which may have been extensively researched in the context of other cultures. But you may realize that those topics or those issues have not been properly explored. Now, I don't mean explored means exploratory research. They have not been properly studied or explored in the context of our culture, our country. So what you do is that you can get ideas from other people's work. For example, you are working, for example, in the area of organizational culture. So a lot of studies have been done, for example, in US, in Japan, for example, in the context of European countries. But maybe you may realize that very many studies have not been done in the context of India. That, for example, if as far as organization culture is concerned, so you can get ideas from studies which have been done in the context of US, in the context of Japan, in the context of, for example, other Southeast Asian countries, and then you may try to identify that, okay, these are the variables which these researchers have studied, and by going through the extant literature, you may find that maybe out of 50 studies that you identified, only 1 or 2 have been done in case of our country, and maybe some of them which have been done were done way back in time, that is, say 10 years back or 5 years back. So maybe some fresh insights are required. So you can decide on that topic, you can identify and you can pick up that topic and you can replicate that work in the context of current times, and then that will be absolutely fine. Nobody will object, and you can even justify that the reason why you have decided on this topic is that even though studies have been done in other cultures, other contexts, but in the context of India, only 2 or 3 studies had been done earlier, and that is why it was necessary and it is required that people should explore this domain in the context of what's happening currently, and that is why you've decided on this. So the first thing is that try to locate relevant literature in your area of interest. So first, again, I'll suggest that try to follow the funnel approach. You start from the broad, because you may go through the abstracts, for example. Sorry, you may go through, say, 50 abstracts of research papers. So I will not say that initially go through all the 50 research papers. First, go through the abstracts. After going through the abstracts, what you can do is that you can identify that which of the studies are really relevant or related to the topic in which you want to work. And then out of those 50, you may initially identify maybe 10 studies which are pertinent or which are relevant from the point of view of what you want to work on. And after you have identified those 10 studies, after going through abstracts of those 50 research papers, then you try to get hold of these 10 research papers, complete research papers. You go through these 10 research papers, and then you try to identify that what are the gaps which these researchers could not fill. And this is one approach. The other approach can be that these 10 researchers, none of them may be in the context of India. None of them may be in the context of our culture. Now, why keep repeating culture in India? Because see, in our country itself, depending upon which part of the country you are, you will find that, you will find that the culture is different. So sometimes studies are required, or studies are being done in the context of our country, where different regions are being compared. Outcome, for example, what is the picture as far as southern part of the country is concerned? What is the picture as far as northern part of the country is concerned? So you can look at it from that point of view also. I hope I have been able to address.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, as a researcher, the first aim to identify the research problem, and research problem is coming from the research gap and followed to the research objective, then the research problem, research question. My question is that if I'm not finding any gap for this thing, just I'm challenging to any of the theories, problematization process, can it apply and it is validated for that? There are 2 processes. One is the gap spotting, find out the gap and fill up the gap. And another the problematization for this thing. So can I only to the gap spotting or problematization, or we can both include it in my research? Is it possible?
Mr. Pradhan?
Yes, sir.
Please, can you be more crisp? And the last part I missed out.
Okay.
There was some audio issue. Last part I missed out. Can you be crisp and
Yes,
repeat
sir.
the last part?
Yes, sir. So as a researcher, first aim to find out the research problem. Research project derived from the research gaps. Research problem derived from the research gap. As a researcher, fill up this research process. It's the gap spotting process.
Yes.
Another is that there is some theory is that I'm challenging that particular theory. That is the problematization process.
Yes.
So is it possible gap spotting and problematization in one research or not? First question. And second question is that there is some real problems are there, but it is not in the literature review. As for any other secondary sources for this, as for some observation method for this thing, whether research can be done on this particular problem or not. My question is that.
See, Mr. Pradhan, as far as the first part of your question is concerned,
Yes,
when you're saying that you want to challenge, okay, you want to challenge. So the moment you say that you want to challenge some existing theory, so you are starting with an assumption that there is some issue with that theory. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you are starting with the assumption, see, it is fraught with dangers. Why? In the sense that I'm not saying that don't challenge existing theories. What I'll suggest is that whatever other people have proposed or whatever they have suggested, so you try to first generate data based upon or whatever methodology they adopted. For example, in the context of social sciences, they must have used certain scale. Based upon the scale, for example, some data may have been generated, and then based upon that data, some kind of findings they may have arrived at. Am I right? Some findings they have arrived at. And what happens is that those findings, when you try to compare your findings with the findings which have been presented by the original researcher in her or his work, then you at times realize that your findings are not in conformity with other person's work. Okay, it may not be in conformity. At times it may not be in conformity. At times it is in conformity. So some researchers, what they do is that they are not very sure of their work. So what they do is they try to manipulate the data so that the findings are in conformity with those of other researchers. So that should be avoided. Now, when you are presenting your findings as it is, that is, you have not in any way manipulated the data, and you are trying to show that my findings are different from that of the researcher whose scale you have used, or whatever the other researcher found in the context of the culture where the study was done. So in a way, is it not that you are challenging that person's work, or in a way what you are doing is that you are going in for theory building, and you are presenting or you are enriching the existing literature based upon your own findings, and you are presenting that, see, this particular person found, or the finding in this context, in this culture was this, and this is what I am finding here. So sometimes what happens is that we as researchers, we develop cold feet, and we say that how can it be that, see, I am such a I'm a novice in this. How is it that, how can I challenge some other person's work? How can I say that my findings are different from that of so and so researcher who is established in this particular field? So what we develop cold feet. That in a way, when you are presenting your findings as it is, I'm repeating, you are challenging other person's work. So this is how empirically we can come up with findings, or we can present our work as being different from what other researchers have or whatever findings they have shared with the larger academic community. So this is, I think, how I look at it.
So my question is, Atiti Deva Bhavo is the theory applied in hospitality industry. The guest is God, but in the practically the commercialization is there. So in this particular cases, with the gap spotting will be there, or problematization will be there. Atiti Deva Bhava, guest is God, it is applicable in hotel hospitality industry. But whenever I'm taken to the data for this thing, no Atiti is there, only to the commercialization. As for the guest who is given to the more taste, is given to taken to the more benefit from the waiter or the service provider in the hotel industry. In this particular case, what is the process I will go with, the gap spotting or problematization? What I'll do, sir? Sir, do you get my point, sir? This is the problem.
Sir, actually, I would like to answer that one on your behalf, if you allow me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Pradhan sir, as long as the literature is supporting your statements, like you don't want to I would say you should always have the supportive statements with you. Like, you can't just something which is in vague because I feel this thing, so it is a problem. It's not like that. You should always have the supporting statements. You read it somewhere, or these are the authors who already did this one. So you should write in this way, because in general, say we found it like, okay, so this is a problem and I should work on this thing. So this is not how the research thing is going. We should always support whatever we are saying it, and we can do it with the help of literature. So
there is no literature. All the theory is there. Guest is God. The Atiti Deva, it is applicable. It is all, everyone is accepted this thing. But it is.
Hey, Dr. Pradhan,
yes,
why are you assuming that everyone believes in this?
Because everyone in every hospitality industry, in hotel industry or tourism management books, they are using the Atiti Deva Bhava. That's why it is accepted. That's why it is a theory.
Mr. Pradhan,
yes,
Mr. Pradhan. See, you're taking, a very narrow view of things. If you're saying that, this is what everybody says, this is what every textbook says, that is not the case.
Yes,
if you look at textbooks, for example, from Western countries, they never say that this is how you should be looking at it as far as this particular issue is concerned. So what I'll suggest to you is that, see, don't start with this assumption that everybody has the same impression of things as you have. It's not necessary. So unless you can back it with literature, unless you have, sufficient empirical evidence based upon which you can claim what you are claiming, it will not be appropriate as researchers for us to say that this is how things exist and everybody believes this is how things are.
Then an evidential proof from the literature, if you only.
Yeah, not only literature, and also through literature. See, is there some empirical evidence? Is it, how many researchers have basically found that this is how things are? Because if you have gone through 2 or 3 textbooks and then we start believing that this is the truth, then I think we are not on the right track.
Yes, sir. I got it, sir. Thank you, sir.
Another
question is that, sir, sometimes we are problem about the research problem and research question. So as you said, the fever is the symptom, but what is the problem to, sir? Can you explore something about the research problem?
See, when I said fever is the symptom, because fever may be because somebody may be having some kind of wound, because of that fever may be there. For example, somebody may be having some kind of ailment, other ailment, because of it fever may be there. So fever is simply indicative of the fact that there is some problem with our body, and with the help of, for example, we can take a medicine to lower the fever, but it will not cure that problem, underlying problem, because of which fever is occurring. So similarly, in business settings, what we emphasize on is that we should be able to identify that what is the underlying problem because of which those symptoms or what appears to be a problem is at the surface. So whatever is visible to us at the surface, that may not always be the problem. So it may be the symptom. So it is for us to identify and find out that whether it is a symptom or whether it's a problem.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Can we move to the next part?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, this is Sheetal.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, research question and hypothesis, are they same? And in a research, is the
No, research
number
question and hypothesis are not the same. See, hypothesis will flow from that research question.
Okay.
Okay. So because see, hypothesis is a conjectural statement between that talks of relationship between variables of interest. So basically, it's flowing from that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
If I'm having research questions like what are the factors that are influencing the decision of tourist, a particular type of tourist at a place in their choice of hotels or something. So
Yes.
is that a proper problem for descriptive study, or I have to go for exploratory study in that case?
I could not get it, please.
So
Please,
if I
can
have
you repeat?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
If I have questions like I want to know what are the factors that are influencing the decisions of tourists in making their hotel choices, route choices, or destination choices, then is that a proper question for descriptive study, or I have to
No,
go
it
for
will be, in this case, it will be descriptive because see, you are clear about the variables when you are saying that choices regarding the location, choices regarding, you're very clear about that what exactly are the issues regarding which you want to generate data. Are you getting me? So basically, you will be going in for a descriptive study in this case.
Thank you, sir.
See, I just want to emphasize more on one aspect here. See, when I said exploratory study, so basically it is that when you are not clear regarding that what are the issues that you should be basically proceeding with, or for example, what are the issues which are involved as far as the choice behavior of say tourists is concerned vis-a-vis places to visit, or for example where to stay and all these. So if you are not clear at all regarding or you are totally in dark, so in that case you will be going in for an exploratory study. But once you have gone through existing studies and then already you are clear regarding that what are the issues involved and regarding which you have to generate data, so you have moved beyond the stage of exploratory study. Okay, let me Is it full screen? Hello?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Screen is not, it's not full screen. Okay. Is it full screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fine, sir.
Okay. So before I move into questionnaire design, let me just, let us revise. Let us all revise some of the techniques, scaling techniques, which you may have heard of. Broadly, we have, two types of scaling techniques. One falls under the category of comparative scales and the other non-comparative scales. And because we use these various scales or these techniques, Likert, semantic differential, staple in our questionnaire. So, and even, for example, paired comparison, so on. So that's why very briefly, in just one slide, I'll try to recap these scaling techniques. So we have comparative, we have non-comparative, we have paired comparison, rank order, constant sum, and in non-comparative scales, we have continuous rating scales, itemized rating scales. And the most commonly used scale that we generally come across in case of research questionnaires, which maybe you may have attempted or you may have responded to, or which you may have used, for example, in case of doctoral works or research paper writing, are the Likert type. The Likert type. We seldomly hear of semantic differential staple, though they are very interesting scales. But of course, I've not been given the task of sharing or discussing all these, so I'll move directly to questionnaire design. And please remember that we'll be discussing, or we generally tend to use more of Likert that was suggested by Rensis Likert. So first of all, what is a questionnaire? So a questionnaire is in simple terms, it's a formalized set of questions, as simple as that, formalized set of questions. And remember that why exactly we are developing a questionnaire? Because there are some information needs from the point of view of the study that we are carrying out. And whatever are the information needs, they have to be somehow taken care of, and they have to be converted into specific questions. And questions should be such that your target audience should be able to understand them, should be willing to respond to them, and should be having information, or should, it's not that they should not be in dark as far as what is being probed or regarding what they are being probed. So we should be able to generate data, and the data should not be junk data. Let me repeat, it should not be junk data. That's why, remember that we have to be very clear that our respondents are willing to respond, and the respondents will be able to respond. And they will be able to respond only when they have the information which is being sought from them. So, in fact, this questionnaire is the most important facet of sample survey technique. So it is the main means of collecting or generating quantitative primary data. And the reason or advantage of having a questionnaire is that it ensures standardization. And if we are using a questionnaire, which is structured type of questionnaire, we can compare, for example, the responses which have been collected by different interviewers. We can compare the responses which have been given to us by different respondents. So, of course, a corollary or outcome of this would be that it would increase the speed and the accuracy of generating data. It will increase the speed and accuracy of recording it. And once that is happening, it will also be helping us in speedily processing that particular data. So, questionnaire is something which helps us in combining information that is residing with the respondent or which is with the respondent, and we have certain survey objectives. So it helps us in combining these two. So once we are able to extract the information from the respondents, keeping in mind the objectives of the survey, we say that we have generated the data. And once we have generated the data, what happens is that we analyze the data, we arrive at certain findings based upon which certain recommendations are given, and then towards the end, some kind of managerial action is taken based upon the recommendations of the researcher. Now, let me caution you that it's not necessary that all the recommendations of the researcher would be adopted and acted upon by the management. Because as a researcher, our task is to suggest alternative courses of action. It is for the management. Let me repeat, to decide that which course of action will be more appropriate from their point of view. Which course of action or which, various alternative courses of action that we are suggesting to them, which combination of them will they be using from the point of view of addressing the problem which the organization is facing. So, but the problem with questionnaire design is that we don't have any scientific principles. Nobody can say that if you follow these steps, the end result would be a perfect questionnaire. There is no such thing as a perfect questionnaire. So, though of course certain guidelines are available, and it has been suggested by researchers that when we start with a questionnaire or the initial questions that we have in the research questionnaire, or sometimes we refer to that as a research instrument, they should be simple, they should be non-threatening. Now, when I say simple and non-threatening, remember that it will depend upon which culture and what is the nature of your respondents, which question will be considered simple and which question will be considered non-threatening from their point of view. I'll give you a simple example. See, if you ask somebody that what is your income, your exact income, and that is the first question in your research instrument, I think all of you will agree that it will not be taken positively by your respondents if that's the first question, because first of all, you have to build certain confidence level, and once that confidence level is there, then only you should expect that somebody would be willing to provide that kind of information to you. So initial question should be simple, non-threatening. So this question related to income may be a threatening question. In certain cultures, question related to their political affiliation may be a threatening question. Why? Because in India, we have no problems, for example, as far as openly accepting that I subscribe to the views of party A, she subscribes to the views of party B, and so on. There is no problem. But in certain cultures, if you reveal that what is your political affiliation, it may be a life-threatening situation from your point of view. So that's why do not think that things which appear to be so easy from our point of view, they will be easy in the context of other respondents or other cultures and other countries. And that is why when I'm very confident that very many of you will be working in other countries, other cultures. So whenever you are designing a questionnaire, always go through and always try to understand the culture, always try to understand that what are the things which are considered to be sensitive from the point of view of that culture, and what are the regulatory, for example, or the government guidelines, or is there an ethics committee? Is there some kind of entity, which has to clear your questionnaire before it is administered on your subjects? So that you have to find out. Then another thing that we have to keep in mind is that avoid having too many questions. It's a very simple, it's a common sense based suggestion that avoid having too many questions in your research instrument. Why? Because nobody has the time to go through 50 or 100 questions which are there in my research instrument or questionnaire. Now, some researchers, what they do is to reduce the number of pages, they reduce the font size. Please do not do that. Why? Because it may unnecessarily lead to cluttering of your questionnaire, and it may not be properly visible to your respondents. Some of your respondents may be having poor eyesight, or for example, because of age, they're not able to properly read what you've provided to them, so they may encounter difficulty. So do not use too many colors also. At times, use of too many colors kills the questionnaire. So number the questions and align the questions properly so that they are visually appealing and they do not unnecessarily put the respondent to stress. Then avoid splitting questions. It's a very common thing that again, it's a common sense based suggestion that do not split the question, for example, into several pages. For example, you have 4 options. 2 options are presented on page 1 down below, and another 2 or 3 options are presented on the top of the next page. The poor respondent may feel that only 2 options are there, may go through only the first page initially, and then may move on to the next question. So avoid that. Then whatever information needs you have, we have to keep in mind that your information needs should be translated into specific questions. If you're able to translate them into specific questions, then you will be having a shorter questionnaire. And see to it that your questionnaire uplifts the respondent, motivates the respondent, encourages the respondent to give proper responses. So whatever questionnaire you are designing, the objective should be that it should minimize response error. Because if there are response errors, then of course the purpose of the questionnaire and whatever time you have spent, this means that it has been a waste. So what are the steps? Certain researchers have suggested that these are the steps that we should be following as far as design of the questionnaire is concerned. So the first step, of course, is that we have to be very clear about the information needs as far as our research is concerned, as far as our doctoral work is concerned. So specify the information which is needed. You have to be very clear about that. Once you are clear about the information which is needed, you have to be very clear about what type of interviewing method you will be going for. Whether it will be face-to-face, whether it will be telephone, whether it will be, whatever mode you are adopting. Then based upon that, you have to decide that what will be the content of individual questions. Because, let me share with you that if you are going in for telephone-based survey, and if you have a question which runs into three lines you have to read out, and then 5 options you have to read again, and it says MCQ type of question. So first you read the 3 lines and then the 5 options, and by the time you are through with the 5th option, the person has already forgotten what was the line, what was the statement as far as this question was concerned, and what was the first option that you read out. So please avoid that. In case of telephone-based surveys, remember that only 2 or 3 or at most 4 options have to be read out, nothing beyond that, because otherwise the poor respondent will not be able to recall the first one. So determine the content of the individual questions, that you have to keep in mind. And you have to see to it that your questions have to be designed keeping in mind the ability of the respondents and the willingness of the respondents to answer. Do not pose questions or have questions regarding which you already know that people will not be giving responses, or people will feel embarrassed giving responses, or people will not be willing to respond. For example, if you ask somebody that did you get this item as dowry? Now nobody will be, even if the person has got it, person will not say a yes to it. So there are other ways of finding out. Decide the structure of the question structure, that is MCQ type or scale type, whatever type you're deciding. Then determine the wording, question wording, arrange the questions in proper order. So you have to see to it that the right kind of layout has been used by you. Then you have to, before you go in for actual administration, you have to remove the bugs, and those bugs can be removed after taking printout and or after testing it on a small group of respondents, or some individuals or somebody in whom you have confidence that they will be properly going through your questionnaire, and then they will be giving to you some feedback based upon which you can improve, or you can understand that whether that person is able to basically make out what your questionnaire is all about. So when we say specify the information needed, we need to basically, what it is implying is that it will help us basically in keeping the questionnaire focused. We have to design it keeping in mind the target respondents. You have to, if for example children are your respondents, you have to come down to their level. You have to use the language which they're able to understand. You have to see to it that if you're going in for personal interviews, lengthy questions can be used. Telephone, short, simple questions have to be used. If you're going in for a mail-based survey, then simple, detailed instructions have to be provided by, because you will be sending it through mail, whether it is snail mail, email, courier, or whatever format you are using. So remember that you will be sending it to somebody. The person, a lot of instructions have to be provided by you, and instructions have to be provided in simple language so that they are able to respond to your questionnaire. So first page of your first page should be instruction page, or you will be addressing that particular individual that, see, please provide responses to the attached questionnaire, and you explain, for example, if certain technical terms have been used, that this is what you mean by those technical terms. Then you can go in for computer assisted telephone interviews. Similarly, you can go in for computer assisted personal interviews also. So one is CATI, the other is CAPI, CAPI and CATI. So CATI is good for collecting information from geographically dispersed sample. And CATI is also helpful, for example, in collecting data regarding questions which are branching type of questions. Now, what do I mean by branching type? For example, if your respondent says that I own a two-wheeler, then the subsequent questions will be different than from when a person says that I own a four-wheeler. So if that is the case, so it is advisable to go in for computer assisted personal interviewing or computer assisted telephone interview. Sorry. So CAPI, see, face-to-face interview here is happening, but the advantage is that of a computer, that you have a screen before you. When the person gives you a response, you record the response then and there. So the advantage is that a lot of mathematical calculations can be automated, and whatever data entry errors otherwise we encounter, they can be minimized here. Then is the question necessary? We have to keep asking ourselves as researchers that can we remove this question? Because we have to be very brutal as far as cutting down on the questions is concerned. We have to ask several questions needed instead of one. Because if we are trying to have questions, for example, which are double barrel type of questions, that is this cold drink or is this thing tasty and refreshing? Now, tasty and refreshing are two different things. So you have to be very clear that will one question suffice, or should I break it into different questions so that I get a complete picture of things? Then we have to see to it that we should be able to overcome the inability of the respondents. So because there may be respondents who are not fully informed, they don't have the information, they may not be able to remember, they may not be able to share properly things with us. So we have to give a don't know option also when we are designing our questionnaire. I'll discuss with you a real life or questionnaire, and then I will take questions in a short while from now. So the reasons for unwillingness on the part of respondents can be that too much of effort is required. You are asking something that happened 10 years back. You are asking something that happened, question pertains to something that happened 5 years back. So do not expect the person to respond, because it will be difficult. The context is not clear. Why exactly you're asking? You are asking somebody that have you ever shoplifted? Now the person will feel threatened. The person will feel stressed out that why is this person asking this kind of question to me? Now you have to explain the purpose. The purpose, if it is legitimate, if you're able to properly explain, then you will get a response. And of course, you have to be very clear that which information is sensitive, as I've already explained. You have to increase the unwillingness of the respondents. So that's why we say that place sensitive questions towards the end or towards the middle of the questionnaire. Use a third person technique. Do you know of somebody who has shoplifted? Do you know of somebody who has taken dowry? So do not ask directly, have you taken? So question, third person technique may at times work instead of directly probing somebody. You can, at times, some researchers, they hide the questions in other questions and provide various types of response categories. Now, unstructured questions, the respondents will answer in their own words. Now, you will find that people are not willing to give responses to these kind of questions very willingly, and it's difficult. For example, in your questionnaire, if you have 10 questions and one of them is unstructured, open-ended, you will find that people will respond to remaining 9 which are structured and close-ended, and may leave the open-ended one blank. They may not respond to it. So what's the fun in having an open-ended question if the people or 80% of the respondents are leaving it blank? So my suggestion would be that try to convert this open-ended question by interacting with a small group of respondents into a structured close-ended type, so that you can minimize this type of issue, or where majority of the respondents are leaving your questionnaire blank. But of course, in certain situations, it is necessary for us to go for open-ended. For example, in case of exploratory studies, you have to go for it. So, but there are disadvantages in the sense that it will be difficult for us to quantify or summarize the responses. Now, structured questions can be of MCQ type, they can be of dichotomous type, or they can be scale type. Just, scale type, what I discussed in the first slide. So, Likert, semantic, and staple scales. So, structured, close-ended, respondent will be provided with a limited number of response options. But remember, it's not easy. It's not easy for a researcher to identify that what all options should be provided. It requires a lot of research on the part of the individual. So, each response option has a numerical value or code. It enables the researcher to easily convert that into some kind of number, some kind of code, and then analyze that. So, numerical values represent some levels on a continuum. Then choosing the question structure, see the structured close-ended question example, in which of the following categories does your age fall? Less than 18, 18 to 30. It's easy. If you pose a query of this type, people will not encounter any difficulty. Why? Because in certain situations it has been found that if you ask them directly that please indicate your exact age, they're not willing to give the exact age. And please do not associate that with any gender. It is irrespective of the gender, depending upon the culture, depending upon where you are, you will find that you will encounter difficulties. So if you in your pilot survey, if you find that this kind of difficulties are being encountered, so remove that kind of question. Go in for this type of option-based close-ended type of question as far as even demographic details are concerned. Then do you smoke cigarettes? Yes or no? Now there is no possibility of another option here. Either a person smokes or a person does not smoke. So structured dichotomous type of questions can be used. Now, what are the advantages, disadvantages of open-ended and close-ended? See, as far as speed of completion is concerned, in case of close-ended, of course, it will be fast. As far as exploratory nature, open-ended will, of course, be more exploratory in nature. As far as breadth and depth, they are used in case of exploratory studies. As far as ease of preparation, open-ended are always easy to prepare. As far as close-ended are concerned, in the context of ease of analysis, it will be easy, whereas in case of open-ended, you will find difficulty in analyzing. Why? Because it will be difficult for a researcher to quantify or convert them into some kind of codes or numbers for the purpose of number crunching. See, choose the question wording or phrasing. We have to translating the information needed into clearly worded questions. Remember that as a researcher, as somebody who's designing a questionnaire, always keep your respondents in mind. Always come down to the level of your respondents. Do not try to show off your language skills. Do not try to show off how good you are at English or how good you are in your vernacular language. Do not try to show off all that, because what is important is your respondent, and your language skills are not important there. So choose the question wording or phrasing very cleverly and very intelligently. Why? Because unless you are using words which are unambiguous, unless you are using words which are simple, unless you're using ordinary words, your respondents will encounter a lot of difficulty. So I'll discuss some interesting examples here, vis-a-vis which you will find that people have been experiencing difficulty in responding. So use ordinary words, avoid implicit alternatives, avoid generalizations. Let us see what we mean by each one of them. So when we say, choose the question wording phrasing. So we have to be very clear about who is important to us, what exactly we are interested in, when exactly we should be generating the data, where exactly we'll be generating the data. Use simple words. Use words which are within the vocabulary of your respondents. As simple as that. Then use unambiguous words. For example, do not use words like normally, frequently, often, regularly, occasionally, because at times they seem all of them seem the same to us. They appear same to us. Why? Because we are in the habit of converting these words first into our vernacular or mother tongue, and then what happens is at times all of them they lead to one word or one meaning as far as our mother tongue is concerned. So why have frequently, normally, when you can ask that, please indicate the number of times that you have visited that place. Don't ask that, do you normally visit that place? No, ask them directly. How many times? So that will give you more interesting data and it will be easy from the point of view of your respondents also. Avoid leading or biasing questions. For example, do you think that patriotic Indians should work for foreign companies when that would hurt the interest of Indian companies? Now, poor fellow, nobody will, dare to go against this. So do not have questions of this type. You can rephrase it like this. Do you think Indians should work for foreign companies? As simple as that. It should not be a leading or biasing question. Then avoid implicit alternatives. So do you like to fly when traveling short distances? Now, the assumption is that the alternative of driving is there, that you are assuming that the person knows this. Do you like to fly when traveling short distances, or would you rather drive? So see, in the first question, alternative of driving is only implicit and thus likely to yield a greater preference for flying. Why? Because you have not given the other option. So avoid this. Do not assume that the person understands. Avoid implicit assumptions. See, a question, if you're asking that, are you in favor of a balanced budget? Now, if you pose this kind of query, everybody or 90% of the respondents will say, yes, I'm in favor of a balanced budget. But the moment you tell them a balanced budget would mean that increase in income tax, now 80% will back out. Why? Because you are having this kind of question in your research instrument, assuming that everybody understands that what will be the implications of a balanced budget. So do not go in for these kind of assumptions. Be very careful. Then avoid generalizations. What is questions should be worded so that respondents does not have to make generalizations or compute estimates. What is the annual per capita expenditure on groceries in your household? Please do not have questions of this type. Why? Because that poor fellow will have to make do a lot of calculations so as to give us the answer. Ask directly how many family members you have. Ask that what is your monthly expenditure on household groceries, and you can automate this. Simple, within a microsecond you can get the answer. So do not stress the respondent. Do not make the respondent do the calculations for you unnecessarily. Use positive and negative statements when you're designing a questionnaire. I hope you may have already noticed that some of the researchers, they use positively worded statements and negatively worded statements in their research instrument. So when we are going in for design of questionnaires, it is suggested that statements should be worded both ways. Why? Because this is one of the devices with the help of which we can find out whether our respondents are really going through my statements, my questions, or not. This is one way of finding out. This is one of the uses of having this negative and positive statements as far as our research instrument is concerned. Then determine the order of the questions. See, opening questions should be simple. They should be non-threatening. What kind of information? Type of information? See, basic information should be obtained first. Difficult questions should not be placed right at the beginning, or sensitive questions should not be placed right at the beginning. This is what I've been repeating. So divide the questionnaire into parts. For example, if you have demographics related questions, they should be placed together. For example, if you have questions which are related to the Likert type of scale, they ideally should be placed together. So why? Because unnecessarily, otherwise you will be stressing the respondent. So the questionnaires themselves should be numbered serially, and research has shown that questions at the top of the page, they receive more attention. So you have to look at this also. Similarly, in case of advertisements which are placed in the center of the page, they receive more attention. Then those which are and also advertisements which are placed on the right hand side page, they receive more attention. Similarly, in case of questionnaire, questions which are at the top, they receive more attention. So when you are designing your questionnaire, you have to keep this aspect also in mind. So you have to reproduce the questionnaire. You have to reproduce it on a good quality paper, because your questionnaire contains your message to the respondent that how serious you are regarding your work. If your questionnaire is printed on lousy paper, it will leave a very bad impression on your respondent. So questionnaires should be printed on good quality paper. If, for example, it's a lengthy questionnaire which runs into 10 or 15 pages, so it should ideally be in booklet form. So each question should be reproduced on a single page. Vertical response columns should be used, for example, for individual questions, but avoid vertical response columns or grid type of questions in case of semi-literate respondents or children. Do avoid grid type of questions. Grid type, I mean that you have a grid with, and you are strongly agree, disagree, you are asking a person to put a tick mark in the appropriate cell. So do not assume that these simple respondents who are semi-literate, they will be able to make out and give you proper responses. So tendency to crowd questions together to make questionnaire look shorter, that should be avoided. That should be avoided. So you should pre-test the questionnaire. Pre-test has to be done, of course, always through personal interviews. Avoid pre-testing through mail, avoid pre-testing through other people. It's your baby, it's your questionnaire. So do not assign this task to some other person. Always go for pre-testing yourself. Always pre-test your questionnaire and go in for 2 or 3 iterations before finalizing the questionnaire. Now I have a simple questionnaire that I would like to discuss before I conclude. It will take just 3 or 4 minutes. So see, I have one questionnaire here, and I would like to blow it up, and I'll be discussing each question, in fact, on a separate slide, so that we are able to better appreciate that how exactly this questionnaire has been designed and what is the nature of data that is emerging in case of each of the question. Now look at this first question that is there. We have, did you purchase Domino's Pizza last month? Please, I don't mean to demean any brand. This, for the sake of example, I'm considering Domino's Pizza simply for academic purposes. In case there is any negative connotations or any negativity, please do not think that this brand is a bad brand. All brands are good. For the sake of understanding only, I am taking this this example. So did you purchase a Domino's Pizza last month? See the options: yes, no, unsure. So 3 options. These are the possible options that can be provided to the respondent. So person does not remember, unsure. Person is very clear. Person did not purchase, so person will give no. Person purchased, a person gives a yes response. And you have the codes also very clearly defined, 1, 2, and 3. So one thing that we have to keep in mind is that what is the nature of data that is emerging from each of the questions. So the first question that we have, though of course I have not been assigned the task of discussing the various types of scales, but it's very relevant for us, and it's important for us that we understand that what is the nature of data that is emerging. So in case of question number 1, when we say, did you purchase a Domino's Pizza? We are giving these 3 options, yes, no, and unsure. So the nature of data that is emerging will be nominal. We have nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio, those 4 types of scales which are used in social sciences. So why we should be clear? Because that would determine what kind of statistical tool we can apply, because that is very important when we are designing a questionnaire. See, the last time you bought a Domino's Pizza, did you? Now you are giving very clear-cut instructions to your respondent, cross only one, that the person has to put a tick mark on only one of the options. And then you are providing all the options: have it delivered to your house, have it delivered to your place of work, pick it up yourself, all possible options that you have thought of. And the person is giving response to only one. And then on the right-hand side, you have the codes. Now, for the sake of understanding, I'm using the codes here. Please note this. Let me just share with you what I mean by this. See, this is for the sake of understanding. I have given here these codes. In the questionnaire, these codes will not be given to the respondent for the sake of understanding, because when you are transcribing the data from questionnaire to the software, then we will be using these codes. For example, instead of entering have it delivered to your house, I will enter a 1. In this case, the response is X, so I will enter a 2 will be entered by me in my Excel sheet or SPSS software or whichever software I'll be using. Now, the third question, in your opinion, the taste of, okay, in the second question also, the data that here was nominal. I told you this is nominal data. Now here also the data that is emerging is nominal. Why? Because each response is unique and there is no connection between any 2 of the responses. Now, in your opinion, the taste of Domino's Pizza, tick only 1, is poor, fair, good, excellent. So in this case, the nature of data will be ordinal, because there is some kind of ordering involved. And the moment we say ordinal, so this means that we have to use non-parametric statistical tools for analyzing the data that will be emerging when we use a question of this type in our research instrument. Now, look at this question. Which of the following toppings do you typically order? Now, any of the toppings or more than one toppings the person may have ordered. So you are indicating very clearly, cross all that apply. So a person has given a response here, a person has given a response here, the same person has given a response here. So the same person has given a response at 3 places, that the person has ordered black olives, oregano and basil. You know, all these toppings have been ordered by that individual. So now here what you will find is that if you compare it to the previous one, see, there was a 1-to-1 correspondence between the variables and the questions. Variable 1, question 1, variable 2, question 2. Now, what do I mean by variable? Because when you are transferring data from your question to the software or Excel sheet, so for question number 1, you will be having only one column. For question number 2, only one column. Question number 3, only one column for storing the data. But for question number 4, you will be having these many columns. That is, column from 1 to, you will be having how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you will be having 10 columns. 10 columns will be there, left by you, will have to be left, you have to leave, so that data from this question, that is question number 4, can be transcribed or can be entered into the data sheet. And if, for example, somebody has given you a response, it will be entered as a 1. It will be entered as a 1. If the response is not there, in this case, it will be a 0. It will be a 0. In this case, it will be a 1. In this case, it will be 1. It will be a 1. Whereas in all the other cases where there is no response, you will enter a 0. So this means that in case of question number 4, there will be 10 columns which you have to leave in your data sheet. Now look at the question number 5. How do you rate the speediness of the service at Domino's restaurant once you have ordered? Now you're giving instructions very clearly. Circle the appropriate number where 1 means very slow and 7 means very fast. Now here the person has encircled 6. So the person feels that the speediness is very close to very fast, or it is quite speedy. It is quite very fast. Now this 5th question, again, before I go to 5th, in the 4th question also, the data that is emerging is nominal. Is nominal in nature. In case of question number 5, the data that is emerging is interval scale. See why I'm saying it is not ordinal. See here, why I'm saying interval scale, because see, I have used descriptors towards the extremes. I've used descriptors towards the extremes, and I have not used any descriptor for the intermediate scale points. If I use the descriptor towards the intermediate scale for the intermediate scale points, the quality of data will be compromised. I'll be generating data which will be ordinal in nature. So here in this case, the data will be that I'll be generating will be interval in nature, and accordingly I'll be using all the statistical tools which I can apply on interval scale data on this particular data. So then in case of question number 6, which corresponds to variable number 15, remember that I'm going in for this kind of response categories. So here what's happening is the person has put a response here. So I'll be entering this as a 3. So some researchers believe that this can be considered to be some kind of ordered response, but otherwise the researchers treat this as nominal data, and then they go in for only frequency counts and for example values, statistics of this type, nothing beyond that. Then the last is, of course, again, nominal data. Why? Because the respondent is indicating whether he or she is a male or a female. So we have 7 questions which correspond to 16 variables. Now I'll be taking questions. I'll be taking questions, please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, you said very well that we should try to reduce the number of questions so that respondents can easily read and answer our questions, and it will not take their much of time. So my question is, sir, we come to several studies, or we do research on a topic, certain minimum number of questions. For example, like I am studying the behavior of consumers, let's say consumer behavior. So there are certain number of questions or certain items that has to be included in the questionnaire. So how to deal with this situation?
Is it Rahul? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Rahul?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Rahul, let me give you, my practical insights into this. See, I've come across scales which comprise of say 100 items. Fine, 100 item scales I've come across. Then subsequently, what happened was other researchers refined that scale, and they refined it to the extent that they converted that 100 item scale into a 10 item scale. Fine, 100 item scale into a 10 item scale. So yes, I think you may be getting the hint what I'm trying to convey. See, initially your questionnaire may be lengthy, but once you use it on a small group of or subset of respondents, based upon the insights that you gain, you can remove some of the questions which may not be yielding very insightful feedback or providing insightful feedback, and you can cut down on those questions, because remember that in social sciences, as a researcher, we have a lot of leverage, we have a lot of freedom as far as deciding that what exactly is relevant from our point of view. We have a lot of leverage. We have a lot of freedom, which is not there as far as other sciences are concerned. For example, in medical sciences, at times, a lot of extensive research is required because it's a matter of life and death. And another thing, let me share with you that as far as, for example, my doctoral scholars are concerned, and there are quite a few. I don't have time, but I would have liked to share with you that none of them. I think maybe just one or two, because in certain cases we required a questionnaire which had to be translated into the language of that particular country, where for example, into Arabic or some other language where it was to be used. So that ran into 4 pages. Otherwise, we have used all through in doctoral studies questionnaires which are 1 page, 2 sides. You'll be surprised. 1 page, 2 sides only. Nothing more than that. So what is important is not how many questions you have in your research instrument or questionnaire. What is important is what is the quality of data that you are generating. And please do not assume that if you are using 1 page, 2 sides, we will not be able to publish too many research papers. So at least I've had a very good experience as far as publications is concerned vis-a-vis my doctoral scholars. They've been able to publish with this 1 page, 2 sides, a large number of research papers in good quality Scopus Index journals. So remember, quality of data that you are generating is important rather than quantity of data, and you have to cut down and see to it that you do not overstress the respondent when you are administering the questionnaire. Yes, Rucha?
Thank you so much, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir. So my question is that how we can, whatever the questionnaire we are designing, how we can say that it is relevant to the research, exactly what output is required.
Okay.
How can we relate a research output?
I think basically what you are trying to question is that how can you be sure that whether your questionnaire will lead to generation of data which will be pertinent from the point of view of problem which you are trying to grapple with. Am I right?
Yes, sure.
Okay. I think for that you have to go in for issues which are related to, for example, the validity. Okay. You have to see to it that whether what you are trying to probe, is it relevant from the point of view of what you are trying to research? Will it lead to any kind of meaningful feedback? And for that, generally what we do is that we share with, for example, a colleague or somebody who is an expert in that field, that what exactly are the objectives of my study. And then we also discuss the questionnaire and the questions with those experts and our colleagues. And then what we do is that we try to ask them that according to them, what exactly will this questionnaire result in? What exactly this questionnaire will be, this question will be providing to us? What feedback will be emerging from their point of view? And will this feedback be in line with our requirements as far as our study is concerned? So we ask other people, because to us it may appear that it's giving to us very relevant information. But from the point of view of those experts, you may find out that they may suggest to you, maybe rephrasing of the question or maybe replacement as far as the question is concerned. So it is important that we discuss with our colleagues, we discuss with subject experts, we go in for face validity, and then after we have gone in for these various iterations, then we finalize our questionnaire. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Dr. Babita Yadav. Sir, yes, I have a question regarding questionnaire. Yes. Sir, in questionnaire, we sometimes also take the open questionnaire, sir. We ask for the
questionnaire,
suggestions.
You mean to say open-ended question?
Open-ended questionnaire.
Open-ended questions are there in your questionnaire.
Yes, sir. Then how can we deal it for data analysis, sir?
See, that is, in fact, one of the concerns that I shared with you while I was discussing questionnaire design was that, see, is it absolutely necessary for you to have an open-ended question? First, you should ask yourself as a researcher. And if it is absolutely necessary, this means that you are trying to explore certain things. You are not clear regarding what possible options can emerge, or you're not in a position to crystallize it into various alternatives, various options, MCQ type of options, which otherwise you could have provided. I think that happens generally in such scenarios, or at the stage of pre-testing of the questionnaire, or during initial stages of the questionnaire. So my suggestion to you would be that what you do is that whatever open-ended questions you have, you share with those open-ended questions with a group of 5 or 6 or 10 individuals whom you think are knowledgeable as far as that subject area is concerned. Whatever responses they are giving to you, based upon that, it will always be advisable that you crystallize them into options. Because it's not that you cannot analyze open-ended responses, but remember that open-ended analysis of open-ended questionnaires is always subjective. I think that's the problem that you may have encountered if you have gone in for open-ended, because there is a lot of subjectivity. You may analyze the same phrase in different manners, and also depending upon who the researcher is, the same paragraph or the same sentence, it may mean different things to different people. I hope you will agree with me.
Yes, sir.
So that's the problem. So my suggestion to you would be that if possible, what you do is that you try to convert that open-ended question based upon your initial try to convert it into a close-ended one. So it may then result in data which may be subjected to higher order statistical analysis.
Sir, one more question. Like, number of questions also depends upon the number of objectives. So if there are, suppose, 4 or 5 objectives,
yes,
then how many questions we have to take per objective, sir?
Okay. I think there is no clear-cut guideline regarding that one objective will lead to only one question, because one objective may lead to more than one question also. I hope you're getting me.
Sir, please repeat. Can you repeat?
I'm saying that there is no clear-cut guideline that one objective should lead to only one question, because that would depend upon what is the problem and what are your objectives. One research objective may result in more than one question in your research instrument.
Okay, sir.
So
okay,
if you have 10 objectives, it may result in 10 questions in your research instrument, or it may result in 15, it may result in 20 also. Because maybe objective number one may, for example, you can effectively deal with it with only one question. But for example, you have another objective that may be requiring 3 questions to address that objective completely. So it's not necessary that there will be one-to-one correspondence between the number of objectives and the number of questions in your research instrument.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, I just wanted to know one thing, sir. So in certain cases, due to factors such as, sir, confidentiality or reluctance, we don't get ample number of correspondents to carry out any tool. So what should we do about it, sir?
I hope, Waqas, you may have tried maybe a questionnaire where you expected the respondent to reveal to you her or his identity. My suggestion to you would be that try this using a questionnaire where the respondent remains anonymous.
No, sir, like, sir, my questionnaire was in airline industry, so there was confidentiality factor from their part. They were not ready to, share the information. So, is there anything if the number of respondents are very less? So, is there any other technique apart? What should we go for? Like, if the number
the problem is in increasing the response base, or the problem is with the questions.
No, so my question is, sir, if the number of respondents are very low, then
what do you mean by how many respondents you have? What do you mean by very low?
Like, say 8 to 10 respondents only if we get.
In case of?
In case of, sir, like in my airline.
Because I have currently also I have a doctoral scholar who is working on the airline industry. I have another one who did work on the airline industry around 15 years back. He's with Air India. Both of them, they were able to generate responses, say around, say to the tune of 600 to 800 for their doctoral work. But what we did was that we took due care that we, at no point in time, we expected the respondent to share any personal details which could help us in identifying who those respondents were. So perhaps that was a device that helped us in increasing our respondent base. Another device that you can use is because of the current problems and the pandemic, especially in the current context, if you're carrying out a study. So maybe what you can do is that you can host it on a portal, or for example, Google Forms, and then you can request those people to share with you their mail ID, or for example, you can provide them a link if the problem is of time. If the problem is of time, because one problem is major problem that we encounter in such studies is that people at times are not willing to share their personal details, and people are apprehensive that maybe the information which they are providing may be used for commercial purposes. My suggestion to you, Waqas, will be that somehow, what we need to do is that confidence building measures are required. Only then it can help in this.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Yes?
We'll be taking the last question now.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Yeah.
Sir, my question is that if my research approach is a mixed research approach, that is my hybrid quantity and qualitative. In this particular case, I needed to the open-end and closed-end questions in the questionnaire. Is it allowed or not, sir?
No. Why? It's allowed. See, it's your baby. It's your questionnaire. It's your study. If you are able to justify that both the types of questions were required, both open-ended and closed-ended in the same research instrument, it's perfectly fine.
Okay. Another question is that, sir, when sometimes we are talking about the big data. So if the respondent needs the big data, we are talking about the big data.
Okay.
50, suppose in my research paper, I am taking to the 50 respondents. Is it to the big data, or what is the definition
it is
of the
50
big
respondents, that's not big data.
Okay, so how do you define to this thing? Depend upon to the population, or
No. See, while designing a questionnaire, because I'm restricting myself to questionnaire design. So when we say that whether it is relevant or not, I said that the most important thing for you to do is, first of all, I expect that you will be going through, or you must have gone through existing literature, and based upon that, you may have tried to identify that what kind of instruments that other researchers have used, and then which question connects to which particular objective of your study. And if you stick to only those questions, or you're very particular about that which question it is addressing which particular objective, so this means automatically you will be, first of all, the advantage is that you will be having lesser number of questions, and the other advantage would be that you will be having only relevant questions in your research instrument. So you have to be clear about what are the objectives, because from that your questions would be flowing.
Thank you.
And of course, it again falls back to, before I end, it falls back to, have you been able to properly define your problem? If you have been able to properly define your problem, then what is expected is that your objectives or problem statement would be okay. And then once that is okay, then you will be broad problem you have been able to identify that would lead to, your research, appropriate research questions you will be able to frame. And then from that, you will be able to crystallize hypothesis. And then you will be able to, find out that what kind of objectives or what kind of questions you should be having in your research instrument.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Hello. I hope.
Sir, do you want to answer any other questions? Actually, because there are two hands. Aarti Madar.
There are two hands. No, I'm fine. I did not notice what exactly. Just a moment. Where? Who wants? Seema Bhardwaj and Aarti. Yeah, I'm fine. If they want to ask anything, they are welcome.
Yeah. So, sir, my question is like we should emphasize more on the close-ended questions or the open-ended questions, because I heard you.
Seema, it is not that we should not be having open-ended or we should be having only close-ended. To a large extent, it would depend upon the objectives of your study. I keep repeating that if you are clear about the objectives, if you're clear about the variables, if you're clear about the problem, then close-ended questions should be used. If there are certain aspects of your study or certain issues which require clarification or more of in-depth probing, so in-depth probing is always possible using open-ended questions.
Yeah, so like because if we are using more of the close-ended question, which ultimately means that we are like already providing the answers to the respondents.
Don't think that options are answers for them. Remember that options that we are providing to the respondent, they are not answers in the strictest sense, or they do not assume that the MCQ type of questions have been provided and answers have been provided. See, options that we are providing in case of structured questions or in case of or close-ended questions, remember that we have been able to identify or select those options based upon extensive research. Based upon extensive research, we have been able to identify that these are the options which ought to be there, which should be provided, and they will help us in uncovering something which is interesting. So they are not actually answers. They are basically helping us understand the views. They are helping us peep into the mind of the respondent. Look at it from that point of view. Those options are helping us peep into the mind of the respondent. They are basically not only answers to us.
So, sir, does this mean that open-ended questions are somewhat relative with the interviews? Like, can we substitute
No.
these two
See, it
words,
is not that. I
interviews
said
and
that.
open-ended questions?
Let me share again. I said open-ended questions are generally used by researchers if certain aspects of their study or certain issues they feel require more of probing, they require more of understanding, and they're not clear about what possible responses can emerge or what possible options should be provided to the respondent. Sometimes what we do is that the last question that you have in the research instrument is that in case you have any other inputs, in case you have any other inputs, in case you have any other feedback, in case you have any comments, please provide. Okay, so we are basically in a way inviting the respondent to give something extra to us in that sense, because it may so happen that we may not have been able to imagine all the possible options, all the possible questions. But generally, at least what I do is that I follow this during the initial stages. Once I have crystallized, decided, and I've finalized my question, I avoid having open-ended questions in the final instrument. During the initial few iterations, we have open-ended questions. Okay, Aarti Madan.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Good
Aarti?
morning, sir.
Morning.
So, how do you take care of validity and reliability while designing the questionnaire at this
See,
stage?
though that is, it will require, time for me to explain, but very briefly, let me share with you. See, when we talk of validity is about appropriateness of the question from the point of view of your objectives, as simple as that. Okay. See, appropriateness. When we talk of reliability is about repeatability. That will we be getting the same or similar responses if we go in for repeat administration of this? So for example, we have a weighing machine. If I stand on that weighing machine, for example, on five different occasions without any other change in me, I should be getting similar readings. Similarly, in case of a questionnaire, I should be getting similar readings after repeated administration of the questionnaire on individuals who are similar, or who for example have similar kind of demographic profile, or for example who I think are not very diverse. So I should be getting similar type of responses. Just like in case of a weighing machine, if I stand, for example, 5 times, 6 times on the same weighing machine, I expect to get the same kind of reading. Similarly, now if I want to measure weight, that's why I've taken this example. If I want to measure weight of an individual, the appropriate scale would be a weighing machine. I will not be using ideally a measuring tape for measuring weight. So if I'm trying to use a measuring tape for finding out the weight of an individual, some researchers may say that what's wrong in it? we can find out, because there are certain indexes based upon which if a person is of certain height, and if I know that the person is 6 feet in height, so the approximate weight should be this much. But that will not be an appropriate scale. So indirectly it can help me. So similarly in social sciences, we have to be clear that whether the scale, whether the question, whatever I'm using for the purpose of generating data from the point of view of the objectives which I have set for, or whatever is the problem which I am trying to address, is that really of help to me in generating what I want to generate. So that have to be clear. And for that, we have different types of validity, and most simple type of validity that, in fact, the example that I've shared is the face validity. I hope, Dr. Aarti, I have been able to clear to some extent.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you. That was the last question. I'm really thankful to you, Professor Mohammed Naved Khan, sir. Being a research scholar, I have been very privileged to be under your supervision, actually, because I personally have learned a lot. And the topic actually you were discussing, we can say that is the crux of any research. Because if you don't know the problem that what you're supposed to work on, you'll never be able to just come up with a good research. So, and then if we talk about the questionnaire thing, your whole analysis depends on the questionnaire, actually. If you are just coming up with a good questionnaire, obviously, we can just expect that our results would be good. So I'm really thankful from the bottom of my heart that you accepted our, request to just discuss this topic with our participants. And I hope all of us have learned the things actually which has been discussed by Professor Mohammed Naved Khan. Again, sir, I'm really thankful to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Asad. And best wishes to all of you. Take care.
Then we'll be just logging off right now. We'll be just waiting for this second session.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, then take care. So participants will be resuming at say 12, 7 minutes from now. So if you want to just have a kind of break, actually you can go wherever you want. But make sure that you are present throughout the session, because I have just shared that information that we'll be taking out the attendance from Google Meet only. So your presence is important. And then if you talk about ATAL, because we are not conducting this say workshop, we are just collaborating with ATAL, and then they will be just making out all the things. So please make sure that